A few years ago, my life changed in a way I never saw coming. It all started when I made the decision to live alone in our family home. My parents and I had disagreements, and I wanted to prove that I could take care of myself. So, with determination, I moved in, eager to embrace my independence and show them I was capable. The house was old, its wooden floors creaking with every step, and the long hallways seemed to carry whispers on the wind. But despite its eerie nature, I loved it. It was my space, my proof that I could stand on my own. Living alone wasn't always easy. Some nights, the silence wrapped around me like a heavy fog, filling every shadow with unease. But I pushed through, determined not to let fear win. Then, one night, everything changed. I was lying in bed, lost in the pages of a book, when I heard it, a noise from the basement. At first, I dismissed it, assuming it was just the house settling or perhaps an animal seeking shelter from the cold. But the sound didn't stop. It grew louder, more distinct, sending a chill down my spine. Curiosity battled with fear, but in the end, I couldn't ignore it. Grabbing a flashlight from my bedside table, I made my way toward the basement door. The wooden stairs groaned beneath my weight as I descended into the darkness, my pulse pounding in my ears. The dim beam of my flashlight flickered across dusty shelves and forgotten boxes, revealing nothing unusual. And then, I heard a whimper. The sound was faint, coming from behind a stack of crates. My breath hitched as I edged closer, my hands trembling. As I shone the flashlight into the shadows, my heart nearly stopped. A man was crouched in the corner. His eyes were wide, filled with fear, as he stared at me in silence. My mind raced. Who was he? How had he gotten in? Why was he hiding down here? Before I could react, he spoke, his voice hoarse and desperate. He told me he was homeless, seeking refuge from the cold when he stumbled upon my house. He begged me not to call the police, promising he would leave and never return. I hesitated. Fear urged me to run, to call for help. But a part of me, the part that couldn't ignore his desperation, made a different choice. I led him out of the basement and back into the night, believing I was doing the right thing. But the unease never left me. Days passed, yet I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. What if he came back? What if I had made a mistake? I tried to convince myself that I was overthinking. That I was safe. Then, one night, I heard it again. The noise from the basement. Only this time, it was louder. And accompanied by something worse, the sound of slow, deliberate footsteps. Ice shot through my veins. Gripping my flashlight, I forced myself to move, creeping toward the basement door. As I reached the bottom of the stairs, the beam of light cut through the darkness, and landed on him. The man from the basement. He stood in the center of the room, his posture rigid, his eyes filled with something different this time. Something dark. Before I could react, he lunged. I stumbled backward, panic flooding my senses. My eyes darted around, searching for something, anything, to defend myself. Then, in the corner of my vision, I saw it. A baseball bat. With every ounce of strength, I grabbed it, spinning around. But he was gone. The basement was empty. Only silence remained, stretching through the space like an unspoken warning. My hands trembled around the bat as I tried to convince myself that it was exhaustion, paranoia, anything but the truth. But I knew. Someone had been in my house. Watching. Waiting. The days that followed were filled with unease. Every creak, every flicker of movement in my peripheral vision sent my heart racing. Then, one day, while cleaning out the basement, I found something that turned my fear into certainty. A makeshift bed. Hidden behind old boxes, along with food wrappers and discarded clothes. Someone had been living here. Right under my nose. My stomach twisted as realization set in. How long had he been here? Had he ever really left? And more terrifying, Was he still watching me? I refused to live in fear any longer. With shaking hands, I called the police and told them everything. They searched the house but found nothing. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. But then, a breakthrough. A neighbor reported seeing a strange man lingering near my house. When the police caught up to him, he confessed. He had been living in my basement for weeks. Watching me. He claimed he meant no harm, only seeking shelter. But I knew better. As they led him away, relief washed over me. The nightmare was finally over. I had my home back. My life back. Yet, even now, when the lights go out and the house falls silent, I still feel it sometimes. That unsettling sensation. Like unseen eyes watching me from the darkness. And I wonder, was he truly alone? It was a stormy night, the kind where the wind screamed through the trees and rain lashed against the windows in relentless waves. Lightning split the sky, illuminating the room in brief, flickering bursts, casting twisting shadows along the walls. In the middle of it all, I was alone with my little brother, Tim. Our parents had left earlier in the day for a week-long trip, leaving me in charge. I wasn't exactly thrilled about babysitting my 8-year-old brother, especially with the storm raging outside. But we had food, emergency contacts, and repeated reassurances from our parents that we'd be fine. As night fell, the storm only grew worse, rattling the windows and shaking the walls with every gust of wind. Tim and I huddled on the couch, attempting to watch a movie, but the constant roar of the storm made it hard to concentrate. An uneasy feeling had settled in my stomach, a quiet, creeping dread I couldn't explain. Midnight approached. Tim had fallen asleep, curled up against me for warmth. But I couldn't rest. Something felt wrong, like the air in the house had shifted, thick with something unseen. Then, through the rain-streaked window, I saw him. A tall figure stood outside. My breath caught in my throat. At first, I thought it was just a trick of the storm, a shadow cast by the lightning. But he was still there, unmoving, watching. His silhouette was stark against the downpour, his head slightly tilted as though he were studying me. I wanted to wake Tim, to do something, but I couldn't move. Fear gripped me in its icy hold as the figure took a slow step closer to the window. Another flash of lightning lit up the night, and for the briefest moment, I saw his face. Pale. Stretched into a cruel, unnatural smile. A chill ran down my spine. The figure raised a hand and tapped against the glass. The sound cut through the storm, sharp and deliberate. Tim shifted in his sleep, but I remained frozen, barely breathing. Then, another tap. Louder this time. And then. The window creaked. My stomach dropped. He was trying to open it. A surge of panic jolted me into action. I scrambled to my feet, my mind racing. Before I could react, the window slid open, rain rushing in as the figure slipped inside. He straightened up, towering over me. The shadows clung to him, his face obscured except for those piercing, unblinking eyes. A sickly, rotting smell filled the air, making my stomach churn. "Who are you?" I barely managed to whisper. No response. He stepped forward, slow, deliberate. The air around me felt heavier, suffocating. I wanted to run, to scream, but my body refused to move. My pulse pounded in my ears, drowning out the storm. And then. He vanished. Gone, as if he had never been there. I blinked, my brain struggling to process what had just happened. Had I imagined it? Was it a dream? But then. I saw the window. Still open. The storm howled through the gap, cold rain seeping onto the floor. My breath hitched as the truth settled in. He had been here. Inside the house. Mere feet away from me. A tremor ran through my body. I had to leave. Now. With shaking hands, I grabbed Tim and pulled him close, barely pausing to throw a coat over his sleeping form before rushing out the door. The storm raged around us, but I didn't stop. I couldn't. Because he was still out there. Watching. Waiting. No matter how far we ran, I knew he would always be behind us. A presence lurking just beyond the edge of the light. But as the first golden rays of dawn broke through the storm clouds, scattering the darkness, I realized one thing with certainty. I would never forget the night the tall man came. And the terror he left behind. My name is Alex. I'm 22 years old and live alone in a small, comfortable house on the outskirts of town. The nights here are usually peaceful, with only the wind rustling through the trees and the occasional hoot of an owl breaking the silence. Normally, I find the solitude comforting. But tonight feels different. The sky is void of a moon, and the darkness outside feels endless, pressing against the walls of my home like a living thing. I sit in my dimly lit living room, the only source of light being the soft glow of a single lamp. The ticking clock echoes in the stillness, each second stretching longer than the last. An unease has been creeping over me all evening, a feeling I can't explain. I planned a quiet night, just me and a few movies to pass the time. But as the hours go by, I can't shake the sense that I'm not alone. Every small creak of the house sends a shiver down my spine. My eyes dart toward the shadows, expecting, dreading, something to move within them. It's just my imagination, I tell myself. And then I hear it. A faint scratching noise. Somewhere inside the house. My heart skips a beat as I strain to listen, but the sound vanishes as quickly as it came. Maybe I imagined it. Maybe it was nothing. I try to focus on the movie playing in front of me, but my thoughts keep drifting back to that sound. Perhaps it was a mouse, I reason. The house is old, noises are normal. But deep down, an instinct I can't ignore whispers that it's something else. Something is wrong tonight. I grab the remote, intending to turn off the TV and shake off this paranoia. But just as I'm about to press the button, the sound returns. Louder. More persistent. It's coming from upstairs. I freeze, every muscle in my body tensing. A cold sweat breaks out on my skin. Something is up there. I try to convince myself it's nothing, just an overactive imagination playing tricks on me. But my gut tells me otherwise. With a deep breath, I force myself to move. Step by step, I ascend the staircase, my ears straining for any sign of movement. The scratching grows louder, more deliberate, as if whatever is making the noise knows I'm approaching. At the top of the stairs, I hesitate. The sound is coming from my bedroom. The door is shut. My fingers tremble as I reach for the doorknob, my pulse hammering in my ears. I take a breath. And push the door open. Darkness greets me. The only light comes from the pale glow of the moon filtering through the window. The room is empty. Relief washes over me. It was nothing. Just nerves. But then I see it. A deep, jagged scratch runs down the length of the wall, as though something with sharp nails had dragged them across the surface. My breath catches in my throat. I am not alone. There is something in this house. Something watching. Something waiting. And in that moment, a new kind of fear grips me, the kind that screams at me to run, to escape before it's too late. I turn, ready to bolt. But then I hear it. Laughter. Low. Menacing. It echoes from the shadows, curling around me like a whisper from something unseen. And then. A figure steps forward. A shape that should not exist. Glowing eyes. A grin lined with razor-sharp teeth. Terror floods my veins. I scream. The sound barely leaves my throat before the creature lunges, its clawed hands reaching for me. And then. Darkness. Morning light spills through the window. I wake to find myself sprawled on the floor, the warmth of the sun brushing against my skin. For a moment, I think it was all a dream. But then, I see the scratch on the wall. Real. Unmistakable. A reminder of what lingers in the dark. I leave the house that morning and do not look back. But even as I walk away, I can feel it. Something still watching. Waiting for night to fall again.